Hi there, thanks for stopping by and checking out this video. This video is to demonstrate and explain the Super Nintendo mod called the Super CIC. The Super CIC is a replacement to the Super Nintendo lockout chip. The procedure is to remove the lockout chip and replace it with a programmable PIC chip. The advantage of doing that is it will allow the play of any Super Nintendo cartridge in the Super Nintendo console as long as the cartridge can fit into the cartridge slot. So I will demonstrate the modes. So there's three modes. There's red mode, orange mode and green mode. So let me, rather than just going through and explaining it, I will demonstrate and explain it. So this here is a PAL 50Hz game. This is the Australian release, but all PAL games are 50 Hz. So I will turn it on, and okay, it's currently in orange mode. So what orange mode is, it's a auto detect mode. So basically, if you place an a 50 Hz cartridge, that be any region that's a PAL region, the cartridge will just play at its frequency, at its selected frequency, which is 50 Hz. So I'll show you what happens if I put an American cartridge. So that's a 60 Hz cartridge. That's the same as a Japanese game's a 60 Hz as well. So auto mode, it should pick up that it's a 60 Hz cartridge and start at 60 Hz. The reason why I know that that it will be 60 Hz is because there'll be no borders on the television. It'll be full screen. And the games run a fair bit faster. The reason why they run faster is because the 60 Hz or the NTSC market was a much larger market, and the games were optimized correctly for 60 Hz. I'll program for the 60 Hz because it was a larger market, and when they released it down under or to any of the PAL regions, that's all of Europe, I believe, and New Zealand and many other places, they didn't optimize the cartridges, the 50 Hz games for for the full speed, so you get a poorer performance in the game at 50 Hz. So 60 Hz is a lot better. Right, that's enough blubbing on about that. So as you can see, orange mode is auto detect. Now you can change the modes by holding in the reset button. So if I wanted to play this American 60 Hz cartridge at 50 Hz, I just change the LED to green light here, and yeah, and you've got 50 Hz. Now, this console here is an American NTSC Super Nintendo, so its native frequency is 60 Hz, and it outputs an NTSC signal. So when I change this to a green mode, it's actually outputting a NTSC 50 Hz signal, which didn't exist. However, some televisions can support 50 Hz in 50 Hz, and you have no issues. Although you might be watching this and thinking, oh, it's a little bit funny. That's just because of the refresh rate, and when I'm looking at it, it looks perfect, but over a video it'll look terrible. But yeah, so if you were to purchase one of these off me, you may find 50 Hz is in black and white. It's just simply because your television can't distinguish a NTSC 50 Hz signal. However, there are ways around that. I can perform what's called a component mod. That's the red, blue, and green jacks, and that bypasses any of the NTSC PAL issues, and you get full color regardless, and a much cleaner picture. So if you were interested in that, just message me, and I can perform that at a little bit of extra expense, but it's not too much more. Yeah, and also you can use a SCART connection, an RGB connection. Make sure that you get the SCART RGB, not the SCART composite, because there is a big difference. And then you'll have no color. You have no issues with 50 Hz and 60 Hz. Saying all that, I would think that most people would want to play these games at 60 Hz, and this console here will have no issues at all playing games full screen, full speed, full color at 60 Hz, and you can play your PAL games at 60 Hz through this console as well. That's one of the beauties of the Super CIC. So Yeah, there are some games that do have some issues running at 60 Hz, but if you do a internet search, you will find all that information. Alright, so that's orange mode explained, and briefly green mode. So back to green mode. So I'll place the I'll place a Japanese cartridge in this time. This is the Japanese version of Star Fox, or what it was called in Europe and Australia. It was called Starwing, but anyway. So I'm starting the game here in green mode. So what this is going to do is it will start the cartridge at its native frequency. In this case, it is 60 Hz, and then after 9 seconds, it will flip over to 50 Hz. Now, the reason why it does that is some of the games actually had a like an inbuilt check to make sure that the cartridge is running at its correct frequency, and if it wasn't running at its correct frequency, it would throw up a message and say, this cartridge is not designed for this version of Super Nintendo. So that's another advantage of this Super CIC. You can play any game on it. It's brilliant. So that's basically green mode. So that's the 60 Hz cartridge you put in there, it will have that. If you place an Australian cartridge 50 Hz cartridge in green mode, it will just detect that it's 50 Hz, and it won't make a change at all. You probably can't see the borders. Oh, they're up there. So yeah. Alright, well that explains the green mode. Now the last mode is red mode. It's basically green mode in reverse. So I'll just pop it on red mode. Oops. Okay, red mode. So red mode is the 60 Hz mode. So to show you that in action, what should happen here is this 50 Hz game should start at 50 Hz and then 9 seconds later switch over to 60 Hz. Same reason as the green, but in reverse. So it's at 50 Hz at the moment. There, it's just popped over full screen at 60 Hz. Yeah, it's a good model. This is another Australian game. I've got to get out of the habit of saying Australian game. 50 Hz game. So pop it in. It's in red mode. This is a game that actually has checks. So this is the 60 Hz mode. So there, it's just popped over to full screen. So again, it starts at 50 Hz. It does all its checks and all that, and said yes, it's a valid cartridge. And then once it's achieved all those tests, it goes over to 60 Hz, which is a much more desirable way to play retro video games. Brilliant. Okay. I'll give you I'll turn this off. I'll give you a general look at the American Super Nintendo, and we'll highlight some of the differences between the American Super Nintendo and the PAL release. The PAL console I have here is the Australian release. Okay, so as you can see, they're quite different. Now, power buttons are in the same way. They've both got an eject button. They're just cosmetically different, that's all. The cartridge slot is a different shape on the American one. Well, they're different to each other. The reason why I like doing the Super CIC on the American consoles is because the cartridge slot is bigger. So basically, as you saw in the video, I won't show it now, you can put any cartridge in there. However, you cannot put an American cartridge in a PAL console or a Japanese Super Famicom without totally mangling this and expanding the cartridge dust door. I'm sure there's some people out there that have done tastefully, but I just like to leave the consoles the way they look, and that's another reason why the Super CIC mod is, in my opinion, better than the Switches. Well, technically it's a lot better, but also cosmetically it's better because everything's internal. So the console looks in its original state. So put the Australian console aside there. I'm sure everyone's seen one of those. Now, better overview of the American Super Nintendo. So it's the front ports. You can use Australian Super Nintendo controllers in these. All Super Nintendo controllers are universal, whether it be a Japanese Super Famicom or obviously American Super Nintendo or a power release Super Nintendo controller. So it's the side. Some people don't like the look of these American Super Nintendos. I actually do like them. Now this power input is one of the mods I've done. It is I've basically removed the power input there and put a more standard input, simply because finding a compatible power supply is extremely hard because it's a proprietary little port. I'll give you a look. Here's another American Super Nintendo I have. So you can see it's a completely unusual. I think it's an R tip. It's just weird. Anyway, so that's that. The eject mechanism's pretty much the same. As you can see on the inside, it's the same eject lever. With this part of the service, the modding I do is I actually remove there's some tabs in here, and those tabs were to restrict the Japanese or PAL cartridges from fitting in. So because there's no groove in the cartridge, whereas the American cartridge has that to accommodate for those tabs. So it's fairly straightforward. You know, I take all these consoles apart and give them a really good inspection and clean them. And there you go. Alright, well, thanks for that. And if you know, I've got a large selection of games as well, so if you are purchasing one of my consoles, just if you're interested in games, I can sell you games too. Cheers. Bye.